Today we are going to discuss about a technology called Git. In today's world, almost all the professionals and all the organizations throughout the world, and many collaborators, many freelancers, and many students have started using commercial softwares like GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. Okay, now what is the technology behind all these commercial softwares? The technology that is being used behind all these commercial softwares is something called Git. So we will discuss in this series about this technology, okay, and how the commercial softwares are using it, and we will learn how to work with it, okay, in the upcoming videos. So without much ado, let's start. Git. Now, before learning about Git, we need to understand a thing. What is a centralized repository? Okay. Now, before jumping into Git directly, we need to understand certain concepts. Okay. So first of these concepts is something called a centralized repository. Now, what is a centralized repository? Let us understand through certain images. Assume this is a guy or this is you who is working from your home. Okay. Now, and you are working on a project. Where do you save the code, the project or the code that you are working on? Where does this code get saved? It gets saved onto your system, local system, hard disk, or on a laptop, wherever you are working. Okay, if it's a desktop, it gets stored into this disk, hard disk, similar for your laptop. Now next time when you start working on this, okay, so it's a big project, you are working on it for some time, and so obviously in 1 hour or 2 hours this is not going to get over. Okay, so when you start working on this again, you start up a laptop or your system or your desktop, whatever it is, and what you do is, what happens is, the code again gets read from this hard disk, right? And you start working on it again. Okay, it gets displayed on your system and you start working. You open your favorite editor, code editor or a text editor, and you start working on it. Correct? Right. Now, assume the use case that another person wants to collaborate with you. Okay, it's an exciting project and this person wants to collaborate with you. Okay, and not only this person, but another person also wants to collaborate with you. So these two guys basically wants to collaborate with you, and they, let's say you were working from Pune and this guy lives in Delhi and this guy lives in Kolkata. Okay, so you guys just communicated and they say that, hey man, we want to work with you, we are interested in a project and we want to work with you. Okay, you must have posted this onto some social media saying that I'm working on this project, or maybe on a LinkedIn, or maybe anywhere, any place where these guys have seen that project or seen your idea and they want to work with you. Now the question is that you have made some progress, right? How do you share that thing with these guys so that this, obviously we're not going to start it from the scratch, right? So all of you three guys wants to start from the point where till now you have worked on. How do you share that code? Do you email to these two guys and they work on your local and then they send it back to you again? No, right? That's not possible. That's not a convenient way of doing work, right? Imagine the use case where actually your code base is almost like 1 GB, which has images, which has a lot of things. How do you share it over mail? You cannot. Another option is that you send your laptop over to them, which again is utterly nonsense, right? You are not going to do that. How you every time cannot just parcel your laptop and you ask this guy to work on it, and this guy to again to this guy share it to this guy, and it work on it, right? That's utterly nonsense. You cannot just do that, right? Okay, so how do these guys collaborate with this guy? So what we want is basically a centralized server, right? Or as a website or some place where where this person can just check in his code, and this person can also check in his code. This person can download from there. Similarly, this person can download from that, and similarly this person can download from that and work on it and again check in his code, right? Or he pushes his code, or he uploads his code, whatever you say. So what we are trying to do is we want to do a repository. That's what is called a repository, the server. Okay, so basically what we want is basically a centralized server, which definitely is not on a local system, where we can store our changes, and with, like I said, which can be later pulled by any coder or the collaborator to work on independently, right, at any point of time. So this is what is called a repository in software language. Okay, it's a data structure which is used to store metadata for a set of files or a directory structure. Because see, when you're working on a project, what it is either it is going to be either a set of files, it is either going to be a set of folders and files and images, maybe videos, based on your requirement, right? But end of the day, all of these are files, right? File formats. So that's what it does. Your repository basically stores all these files for you, so that it can be accessed by anyone else at a later point of time and worked on upon it. Okay, and work on it, and again that person can just check in the code again, right, to this repository, update the code. Okay, so what by so let's see this in action, right? Imagine you three guys are there. Okay, now comes in the centralized server. Okay, this server can be anywhere. It can be on the internet. Okay, it can be somewhere else also. Okay, so it can be if you three guys are actually working on the same, let's say you three guys are working in the same office, okay, but at different locations means in your office, this guy works on the first floor, this guy third floor, this guy seventh floor, right? So this server, office server, is the one which is storing all your codes, and I can access, this guy can just access to it, right? This guy just can access through this server, and similarly at the same point of time this guy can also access the code from it and work on it, and then also check in the code, right? Similarly this guy also. Now you have a server, so problem solved, right? I mean, I am working, you are working, Bob is working, Plain is working, Ram is working, right? So what happened is all these three guys are working. You have a repository, or which is hosted on the cloud. Okay, so it can be on the internet. Basically, it's basically an URL for you. It's basically for an URL for you, and it's basically an URL for this guy. So you guys just check in that code, upload that code to that particular site. This guy downloads it. This guy's download it. This guy download it, the updated code, work on it, push it back to this, right? So problem solved. Now consider this case. Let's assume this guy, right? He has added a piece of code which says print, hi, my name is John. Okay, and he checks in the code, correct? He uploads the code to the server. Very good. Next, this guy, right? This guy here, he checks the code. Okay, he will pull the code. Obviously, he has to take an updated code. Let's say he will just take the code. What it does is update that piece of code with his own piece of code, right? He will just say print, hi, my name is Steve, and he checks in that code. So what happened is, whatever this guy wrote, that got overwritten by this piece of code, correct? Okay. Similarly, after that, when this guy wants to work on that same piece of code, and he just takes it in and he just takes a pull, and after that he overwrites, he deletes all these things and overwrites it with print welcome guys, right? So basically at the end of the day, if I execute this piece of code or execute this program, whatever is stored here, or the software, whatever these guys are working on, for me the output will always be welcome guys. The changes made by this guy or this guy is never going to be seen or never even recorded, right? So tomorrow when he comes and he says, hey guys, where is my piece of code? Who deleted it? You have no track records of it, right? No one knows who has deleted it, what happened to that piece of code. Similarly, when this guy comes in and he says, "Hey man, where is my piece of code? I just wrote that yesterday." And end of the day, you don't see his piece of code here also, and no one knows what happened to his piece of code. It's just gone. So having a repository is not a proper solution when we actually want to do work in a collaboration environment, right? When multiple people are working on a single project, this is not a solution. Just having a repository is not enough, right? It's just like you have a warehouse where you are just dumping, you three people, let's say three people of your family are just dumping things, the storeroom, okay, where you are just dumping things, and you are just taking, you are just suddenly at any point of time you just go in, you just take something out without informing anyone. Similarly, other person is also going in, taking in something, going out. Okay, similarly the third person. Now you are taking out something. Let's say you are taking out a, uh, a pen from this warehouse, right? Now there is no record. There is no third person who will know who has taken this pen. When the second person comes in, he will have no record. He will just come in, you will see, oh, a pen has been taken. Who took it? No one knows. One way of doing that is we add an authentication, okay, to that door, where actually your thumbprint or something has to be, or whoever is the people who has access to the server, or not server, that warehouse should have a thumbprint, okay. And secondly, that is one thing. Secondly, what you can do is you can create a log, right? You need to register. Once you get into the warehouse, you need to have a register or a computer entry or anything where actually you can just say, hey man, I'm just taking this out, okay, and you can just take it out, okay. A very similar example of this is a library. You go to a library, you want to take a book, you choose a book, right, and you just go to your the librarian and say, I want to take this book. He or she will actually record your details and what book has been taken, okay, when it has been taken, when it will be returned, right? So basically what I want to say is you should have a record, okay. So if these guys would have that record, then he would have known that this guy is the one who deleted his code, and this guy would have known that, okay, this is the guy who had deleted his code, right? Okay, this is one use case. Now the second use case is, assume the case that whatever piece of code this guy has written, okay, causes some issues. When I say issues, what I mean is your software becomes unusable, okay. So what actually works is actually this piece of code, right? Let's assume this is the piece of code that actually works. Now this guy has overwritten it, this guy has overwritten it, and what happens is now your software is not working on it. But when you are pushing out your software to for customers or any user, you need to have a solid working per software, right? You just cannot give him a bugged software or a software with bugs or unusable software. So are we going to do again this piece of code? Let's assume there's only one line, but let's say this guy has deleted almost like 1,000 lines of your code, okay, and this guy has almost deleted 50 lines of his code, okay. So how am I going to get that 1,000 lines of code back, right? That is what is version control, where actually each, so whenever this guy writes a piece of code, okay, and he checks it in this system, okay, there should be a system who maintains a version of it, who names it, who makes a version out of it. Similarly, next time when this guy pulls the code, works on it, deletes something, and then again pushes it back to the server, okay, then a second version is being created. This original version which this guy worked on is still there, and then after that when this guy started working on it, he pushed it and next version is created. Similarly, after that when this person starts working on it, he will also have that version. right? Whatever was the previous version. Now, let's see why we require a version control. Okay, so like I discussed and explained in the last slide, it is very important to keep track of the code and the file changes made over time, right? Also, like I said, if there is an issue or if there is you want to revert back to previous changes, okay, the or just the stick coder or the organization just wants to stick back to his old piece of code, okay, so in those cases it's very easy it's very easy to revert back to your old code, okay, and have the system working just like fine, okay. Third is so now as we have seen these three people we were talking about, right, all the three people we just saw in the last slide, they were working independently, right? So neither Bob, neither Clayton, neither other guy had to depend on each other just to do his piece of work, okay. I want to work at 12 a.m. I will just log into it, okay, that server, and then I'll just pull the code, I'll just work on it, and I will just make the push in the changes. That's all I'm going to do. I don't want to care who else is working on this project, right? So these three people can work on their own accord and can just check in the codes, correct? Okay. Also, this so basically what this does is because this is providing you a flexibility and independence. So what it makes is it makes software development much faster. Since we are having a version and what the other person has made changes, if we have this, then obviously what it provides is a good code visibility. Okay, and so that the person who is so let's say I am actually just pulling the code or Bob is just pulling the code and he just want to work on it, what he has seen what the other person Glenn has made the changes, okay, and based on that he can actually see whether he wants to write his piece of code, how it is going to impact others, okay, he can just go and compare and analyze the code. And obviously so since the server can be anywhere and like I said Bob can be in India, Glenn can be in Australia, and the other person can be in New York, but all that matters is the access to the server, right? It doesn't matter whether you are where you are or you need to be in the same place. So it helps teams and people to collaborate for projects across the world.